We got Knicks and Warriors and Kings. Oh my. The Bucks are getting ready for a 3-game homestand, so let's get you ready for it as well on today's crossover episode of Locked On Bucks.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What it do? Welcome to Locked On Bucks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Camille Davis, an NBA analyst with the Locked On Network and co-host of the Technical Foul Podcast. Appreciate you for tuning in and making Locked On Bucks your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, as well as on YouTube. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off of your first purchase. Now, the Bucks started the 2025-26 season 2-1, after an emotional home opener, welcoming Chris Middleton back to Milwaukee for the first time. Then the Bucks hit the road for a 2-game trip against the Raptors and the Cavs. And now the Milwaukee Bucks are gearing up for a 3-game homestand against the Knicks, the Warriors, and the Kings. So it's time to get you ready for it as well. We're continuing the crossover of it all this week with a future foe focus. Today, I'll be joined by the Locked On host from all the ops for this week. First up to the docket, joining us from Locked On Knicks, Gavin Schall. How are you doing, Gavin?
Good. Excited to be an op, and it's a solid start to the Mike Brown era here in New York. So we're excited.
Well, I don't know how. I mean, you guys are for real ops. Last year, the Bucks did not have success against the Knicks at all, and that was a Knicks team that went farther than it's been in quite some time, with 25 years, I believe, getting to the Eastern Conference Finals there. So after that, Tom Thibodeau hits the door. What have the early returns been on a Mike Brown coached New York Knicks team, especially compared to what Tom Thibodeau was doing before?
Yeah, it's been incredibly exciting, and it's kind of difficult to be objective because it's a lot of the stuff I know I was complaining about from Tom Thibodeau for the last 5 years, and I think a lot of Knicks fans feel that way. That like you almost feel like a little unsafe with it because Mike Brown is giving you just everything you want. Like he in the second game of the season, obviously Tom Thibodeau very famously likes to stick with very specific lineups. Last season, the Knicks starting five, I think, played 500 more possessions than any other lineup in the rest of the NBA. Mike Brown played 24 different lineups in the second game
already
of the season. Yeah, not over 3 games. In the second game of the season, in 48 minutes, he played. That's a different lineup every 2 minutes, essentially, which is maybe overkill, but was cool. He started Deuce McBride next to basically all the Knicks starters last year, except for Josh Hart, which is something a lot of people are asking for, so the Knicks could play a true 5-out, given that they've been without Mitchell Robinson, who is their presumptive starter at the beginning of this season. He's adjusted the starting lineup based on the opponent, going with one in game 1 and game 3, with Ariel Hukporti in there for Deuce. So there are just a lot of different things he's been doing that I think Knicks fans have wanted to see, and the results have been fairly good so far. Opened this season with wins over the Cleveland Cavaliers, over the Boston Celtics, 2 teams the Knicks went a combined 0-8 against, and not just 0-8, but were embarrassed in the bulk of those games. Obviously, the Cavs were depleted. Boston's not the same team, and the Knicks followed that up by losing to the Miami Heat in a very ugly game last night. So you can't say it's 100% roses, but things generally look really good early under Mike Brown.
Well, I know one thing that has looked good for the Knicks under whoever has been there since Karl-Anthony Towns has gotten there, along with Jalen Brunson, is that those two have been Bucks killers. The Bucks have made some adjustments on their end. You won't see as much Brook Lopez, trying to slow down Karl-Anthony Towns anymore, or anything of the sort. You won't have Damian Lillard out there being the guy who opposing teams are trying to pick on. But how have those two in particular looked to start the season? Because I know Karl-Anthony Towns was dealing with a quad injury. I believe that it was, which slowed him down a bit in the preseason. He also made remarks, about not really knowing what his role was offensively yet under Mike Brown. So those two players in particular, I wanted to start with them because, as I mentioned, they have been Bucks killers. So how have they looked so far this season?
So Jalen, typically, at least on the Knicks, I don't really know what he did on the Mavs, has struggled to start years, and he was really pretty rough in game one. Like the Knicks won game one almost in spite of him. And then he's just been a monster the last two games. Like he absolutely carried them down the stretch against the Boston Celtics. I think 12 points, 2 assists in the final 9 minutes of the fourth quarter. Just cooking switches, like hitting deep threes, turning the corner on Derek White over and over again. Boston had zero answers for him, and he stayed in rhythm against the Miami Heat. Just a ridiculous 37-point, 7 assist performance, 14 of 26 from the field, 5 of 11 from three. Like he is just in a fantastic rhythm, like and a rhythm that I think is frankly impressive, given he has maybe the single biggest adjustment of any Knick. Like Tom Thibodeau, I don't want to say made his life easy, because he had one of the harder jobs in the NBA, but it was very streamlined, right? Like he knew what he was doing on a possession to possession basis. And generally that was having the ball in his hands more than any other player in the NBA. And there have been stretches like that under Mike Brown, far more than what we saw in the preseason. And they're still trying to find the right balance of him on the ball versus him off the ball, and using that to set up others. Towns, a little bit more of a mixed bag. He hasn't shot the ball for someone who is hyper efficient. Nearly had a 50-40-90 last year for the Knicks. He hasn't been quite as clean, did not shoot well yesterday, didn't really make an impact scoring the ball until late in the game. But I do think that quote has maybe been a bit overblown, because he seems pretty comfortable in his role, right? At times playing a little bit similar to how Mike Brown used Domantas Sabonis on the Kings as a high post hub. He had done some of that stuff last year for Tom Thibodeau. He's been really, really good with guys like OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges, throwing him the ball, almost running off him like a little bit of a rub screen, and then cutting to the rim. And he's just so good delivering it over the top, finding guys on bounce passes, just generally operating as a dribble handoff guy. After only shooting 4 threes in the first game of the season, he's gotten up a bunch of them, which was maybe the single biggest complaint about him amongst Knicks fans last year. And as far as that quad injury, I don't think it's bothering him too much. Like he had this exceptional chase down block on Kel'el Ware yesterday. He looked a little stiff driving in the first game against the Cavs. I haven't really noticed it since. I don't know if the injury is getting better or if he's just doing a good job fighting through it, but he's pretty much looked like himself. Just hasn't had like a real like signature Karl Anthony Towns game scoring the ball yet. Maybe it'll come against the Bucks.
I hope not. I hope that's not where it happens. But when you're talking about scoring the ball, like Giannis has gotten off to a fantastic start so far this season. He became the first NBA player in history to open the season with at least 100 points, 40 rebounds, and 15 assists through the first 3 games. So he has been on fire. You mentioned that Mitchell Robinson has not been there yet for the squad, and Giannis is a hard cover for anybody. How have the Knicks been working through the Mitchell Robinson absence? And how do you think that the Knicks will approach trying to slow down Giannis, especially on a team this year where he's the sole superstar, right? But this is a Bucks team that's a lot more younger, athletic. And I think that the roster itself is actually maximized a bit more around Giannis. Now, the game against the Cavs was kind of rough because they were down quite a few playmakers, with Cole Anthony having an illness, Kevin Porter Jr. with the ankle, and even Kyle Kuzma was out with an ankle, who has been a pretty decent playmaker, secondary playmaker for the second unit so far. But the Giannis question for the Knicks, how do you think you guys will try to slow him down in this game on Tuesday?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's an impossible question, right? Like I frame it almost as building the best nuclear bunker you can. You're still going to feel the nuclear bomb dropping on you, but I do think when the Knicks have Mitchell Robinson, to your point, they have about as good of a bunker as any team in the NBA, right? OG Anunoby is your first line of defense. Mitchell Robinson is your second line of defense, occasionally on switches, like someone who can move his feet with Giannis, someone who's like physically strong enough in his chest to take those bumps and occasionally not go flying into the third row. So the Knicks are well equipped, but to your point, without Mitch, like it is certainly a point of concern for New York. Defense has not been a big issue for them early this season. And a lot of that is the way Mike Brown has empowered both Anunoby and Mikal Bridges off the ball, leading into the type of defense Tom Thibodeau played in that second round series against the Boston Celtics. I don't even think by choice. It was more so because the Celtics were just so consistent in hunting out Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns. It allowed both Bridges and Anunoby to be off ball. And weirdly enough, even though you wouldn't think the Knicks would like Brunson and Cat getting hunted, like it's almost not the worst case scenario, because then you get these two, just like two of the 5 to 10 to 15 best off-ball defenders in the NBA, both playing at the elbow, both kind of probing in, and like Mikal Bridges is just in a much better space mentally. Clearly, he very publicly had complaints about Tom Thibodeau last year.
Yeah.
Much happier with Mike Brown as his coach. Like he's just playing with a different level of focus and effort. Those two combined for, I think, 9 or maybe even 10 steals plus blocks in the very first game of the season. They've been super active playing the passing lanes, poking the ball away. So they've been really big helps there. And Deuce McBride, it's unclear at this point, unless I missed an injury report this morning, whether he's going to be available for the Bucks game, but he's been a big contributor to that as well. He looks like he's in the best shape of his career. And the Knicks certainly have a little bit of a weakness at the point of attack if he's not giving you 25 minutes a game. Isn't Mikal Bridges has to do more, and then you lose what he does off ball, and it just has this cascade effect that is not very good for the Knicks. That being said, they still defended fairly well against the Miami Heat in a game where they shot terribly, gave the Heat a ton of opportunities. They still held up okay. They were better against the Celtics. They were solid against the Cavs. I would expect a pretty good showing. You mentioned it, but the Knicks have just been really good defending this Bucks team, who you could tell me if I'm off on this, I think is probably more different defensively this year than they are offensively. Knicks have won the last 5 games. We talked about this when we did a crossover early offseason by 17 points per game after the Bucks had just killed them in the previous 9. So it does feel like the Knicks figured something out. And I'm curious what tactical adjustments Doc Rivers makes on the offensive end in this matchup.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, especially if Kevin Porter Jr. is healthy to go for this particular game. It's been a big emphasis for the Bucks offensively to try to create those 3-point looks by breaking down your point of attack defender and getting into the paint, touching paint, kicking out, and using Giannis's gravity as well in the process. Miles Turner hasn't put up the offensive numbers that some might have expected, but he has been so good as a guy who just continues to keep the ball moving for the team, being very active defensively. So I think Bucks Knicks is going to be really, really fun this year as a whole, the series. Hopefully a lot more competitive than it was last year. But Gavin, thank you so much for coming by, stopping through, previewing the matchup for this week. And we have, of course, more to come because Steph Curry and crew come to town on Thursday. So we'll be talking with Chuck up next. The NBA is back, and there is no better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks and more. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. And with how the action has been over the first week, we're in for one of those seasons. I tell you that. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head on over to FanDuel.com to sign up and to play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. I would also like to talk to you about our good friends over at Game Time, because with the season being here, nothing beats actually being in the arena for those opening games. But let's be real, sometimes getting tickets can be a headache between waiting in queues and surprise fees and prices that jump right before checkout. It's easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is cheer on your team. And that's where Game Time comes in. It's the app that gives fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NBA tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. I'll be the first one to tell you that I can be cheap, okay? So if you ever see me out here balling, know that it's on a budget, okay? And Game Time is a crucial part of that for me, because what you see is what you pay. There are no hidden fees at checkout. You can find NBA tickets for even under $25. Plus, I can always see where the view from my seats look like before I buy my tickets, thanks to the in-app seat view feature, which I love. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDON for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Time is super valuable. We appreciate you for tuning in to Locked On Bucks. A special shout out to the everydayers who tune in Monday through Friday. And if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube, please make sure you do that. Come be part of the show. So right now, I am joined by Locked On Warriors host, Chuck Walter. Chuck, how are you doing today?
I'm well. Yourself?
I'm doing good. It's a fun week upcoming for the Bucks. And as we record this on Monday afternoon, the Warriors are 2-1. They have 2 games this week before they meet up with the Bucks on Thursday in Milwaukee. Home back-to-back for the Warriors early in the season. Tonight against the Grizzlies, Tuesday against the Clippers. So when I think of the Warriors, and I think when most people think of the Warriors, they think of Steph Curry, they think of Draymond Green, and now with this edition of the Warriors, Jimmy Butler. Like, this is the core trio that this team is currently built around. Small sample size, but how have they looked so far to start the season?
I mean, the team as a whole has looked very good in spurts, very average in other spurts. And specifically in the Portland game, felt like they just ran out of gas. Nuggets game, it was a gritty, come from behind victory. And then the Lakers, Steph Curry called it just a professional win, one that they should have won without LeBron James on the floor. And the team has been, I mean, Curry's been unbelievable. He's averaging 33 at this point. He's already, eclipsed 40 points, which he's going to do many times this season, you would imagine, eclipsing 50 multiple times last season. And then Draymond Green hasn't necessarily gotten going yet, offensively nor defensively to his standards. But again, it's kind of the season's picking up. And then Jimmy Butler was awesome the first 2 games, best player on the floor against the Lakers, but not so much against the Blazers. And it's more so Jimmy. He's this, you don't really get it until you see him for a large sample size on your team that you cover. But there are just certain nights where it's not that he doesn't show up. He's just not extremely aggressive. I think he was like 3 of 8 against Portland, got to the line 10 times. Good assist to turnover ratio, but just wasn't super aggressive. And the team clearly just didn't have much gas left in the second half of a back-to-back that included a road trip. Jonathan Kuminga's looked awesome. He's a huge bright spot that we can get into. And aside from that, it's been up, it's been down, and it's, hopefully Al Horford being back for the Clippers game, because the Clippers have just owned the Warriors with their size the last couple seasons.
Yeah, the Kuminga point's exactly where I wanted to go next, because that was like the story of the offseason, to the point where everyone was waiting for the Kuminga news, what was going to happen with them, to the point where you had Al Horford and all these other guys who were kind of lined up to become Warriors, just waiting for that to become official. So with Kuminga back in the fold with the squad, how has he looked so far? You mentioned he's been a bright spot for this team.
He's been awesome. He's been awesome, and I didn't think there was any saving this. I thought that it was, leading towards a trade at one point during the summer. Warriors front office says, no, he's coming back next season. I thought to myself, I don't know how they're going to fix this relationship. Steve Kerr doesn't want to play him. Kuminga doesn't want to do what Steve Kerr's doing. He's openly going on the air saying he'd rather leave if possible. So it's all leading to a trade at the deadline, we thought, but now you watch him play, and it looks like he's a part of the team. He's kind of that third scorer that rolls out of bed, gives you 16. But the difference is he's a facilitator. Beforehand, there'd be plays where he'd get the ball on the block and immediately he'd be dribbling, backing down, sometimes stripped, sometimes scoring, but he'd be looking for his own. That was how he kind of performed.
Right.
Now it's pass first mentality. It's within the flow of the offense. He's moving, he's cutting. He's been very good in transition, making the right play and the right pass. And then defensively, he's still got some work defensively, but he's crashing the glass, which is something Steve Kerr really wanted to see. And Kerr said he's been really proud of Kuminga. We've seen this approach from time to time in certain games throughout the last 4 seasons, but we've never seen it, 4 preseason games and a couple games into the regular, 7 games in a row or whatever it is, to where this just looks like who Kuminga is. And it's someone that's fitting in within the offense, not trying to be the guy, and really making the game come to him, and utilizing his talent, slowing things down.
Okay, sounds like there's been some real growth in his game too, especially offensively, which leads to my next question on the other side of the ball. Like, what's the situation with the Warriors defense right now? Again, small sample size theater. There have only been 3 games played as we currently talk right now, but they currently have like the 28th worst rated defense in the league by defensive rating. Again, very small sample size. And what's going on with the defense? And also, who is the Warriors' like best point of attack defender right now as well, with so many different lethal guards and wing players that you're trying to slow down? Who normally gets that assignment?
So I guess it's a catch-22. The defense has been bad, but the point of attack defenders have been out. Moses Moody was injured, I think, the first game of the preseason, or at least hasn't played since the first game of the preseason until Portland. But it was one of those like get your feet wet games. I think he played like 10 minutes, and you could tell it was just getting back into basketball shape. And then D'Anthony Melton is the other guy that tore his ACL last season, but looked really good in his small sample size. And dating back to Memphis, has been a pretty good NBA player when healthy. He's out until probably November, December. So we got to wait for him as well. Those are your 2 point of attack defenders. Jimmy Butler thus far statistically has been below average. Gary Payton, Payton, who's supposed to be a really good defender, analytically has been below average. Buddy Hield, shockingly, has been average. Curry
Seriously?
below average. Pajemski's been poor. Kaminga's been poor. This is just the analytics alone. And the one guy that obviously is a very good plus defender, to say the least, right now is Draymond Green. He's the engine. And you've seen at moments the Warriors kind of get together, especially when Al Horford has played. The defense looks better. But it's been spurts thus far. They've given up, a stretch to the Lakers at the end of the first half that was uncharacteristic. Blazers really just utilized their youth and their athleticism and their three ball in that game to dismantle the Warriors. And then the Nuggets, we'll put an asterisk next to the Nuggets because Aaron Gordon had 50 points.
Yeah, he was cooking in that game. It was unbelievable. I felt when he did, I think he was at 10 of 11 from 3 or something in that game.
He started off 9 of 9. Yeah.
Yeah, it was crazy in that game.
Not much you can do about that.
No, at all. You got to tip your hat sometimes to certain performances when you see them. And one performance that Bucks fans have had to tip their hat to, although sometimes begrudgingly, has been Al Horford when he's got the matchup against Giannis. He has done what he can to bother him. Giannis is one of those forces in the league that's just really hard to slow down. Horford's been a guy that for years has kind of, been up for the challenge. I'll put it that way. Would you say we should expect to see Al Horford in Milwaukee on Thursday based on how his playing time has been so far early this season?
100%. So the way that I think the Warriors are strategically going to do this is pick the back-to-back that makes more sense to play him. For example, he plays against Jokic and the Nuggets. Next night sits out against the Portland Trailblazers. That makes sense. The Monday-Tuesday matchup is Memphis Monday and then Clippers Tuesday. Who do you think he's playing against? The answer, obviously, Zubac. So he's got to go against him. So he's playing Tuesday, sitting out Monday. Draymond Green will have to take care of Jaren Jackson Jr. and company. Zach Edey, though, he's a big guy that'll probably just destroy the Warriors. But that's life right now with a team that's not that big and one of your biggest players in your best big defender, minus Draymond Green, Al Horford, having to sit out back-to-backs. That's just life. But based on the schedule, playing Tuesday against the Clippers, I'd expect him to play Thursday against the Bucks. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Sounds good. It should be a fun matchup. I mean, Western Conference foes against the Eastern Conference team. We only get to see them twice a year, only once at home. Every single time Steph Curry
we didn't get to see Giannis last year against Jimmy Butler. I think he was out.
Yeah, so hopefully we get Steph and Giannis in Milwaukee on Thursday at the very least. So it's a fun way to start the season off. And Chuck, I want to thank you so much for your time and helping to preview this game.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
For sure. Make sure you guys stay tuned because as the Bucks get ready to wrap up this 3-game homestand with this 4 p.m. Saturday night game, or Saturday afternoon, I guess you would say, against the Kings, I'm going to be joined by Matt George of Locked On Kings to make some sense of this Kings roster and preview the matchup right after this. If you are a business owner, here's the truth. SaaS promised to make work easier, but now the average company is buried by hundreds of apps that slow down your teams and simply don't work together. That's not SaaS, that's sad. Software as a disservice, and that's why you need Rippling. Rippling is the unified platform for global HR, payroll, IT, and finance all in one place. They've helped millions of businesses replace a mess of disconnected tools with one system designed to give leaders clarity, speed, and control. Everything. And I do mean everything from onboarding to payroll to IT access runs automatically and perfectly in sync. It's seriously simple to use, and it gives companies one source of truth for their people, their data, and everything they touch. So whether you want to run your entire HR, IT, and finance operations as one, or just fill in the gaps in your software stack, Rippling can do it all. And right now, you can get 6 months free when you go to rippling.com/lockedonnba. Learn more at rippling.com, rippling.com/locked-on-NBA. That's rippling.com/locked-on-NBA for 6 months free. You know, most people can't name all of their financial accounts or even what they're actually worth, whether you're talking about 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why I started to use Monarch as an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. It does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear visual data, and get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I personally love how easy it is for me and my husband to manage our finances together. Like, the app is built to support multiple users sharing finances, and I love it. So don't let opportunity pass you by, especially when it's a financial opportunity. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarch.com for 50% off of your first year. That's monarch.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. Joining me now is the Locked On Kings host, Matt George. Matt, one of the best in the Locked On network, one of my favorites to watch, some of the best cold opens that you guys will see across the network here from Matt. How are you doing today?
Unfortunately, all those best cold opens are typically after Kings losses, so those have stacked up over the years. But I'm good. It's early in the season, so we shouldn't overreact to anything, right? So we're all right. We'll see how this whole year goes. The start, not so great.
Yeah, and as we record this, the Kings are 1-2. They have a road back-to-back. Tuesday at the Thunder, Wednesday at the Bulls before they come to Milwaukee on Saturday to play the Bucks. The Bucks have 2 games prior to seeing the Kings as well, but coming into the season, I had quite a few questions about the Sacramento Kings. I was confused last season about pairing DeRozan and Levine again, like Chicago Bulls Part 2. The Kings really need that point guard depth. Ended up with Dennis Schroeder, which I do like that pickup, and Russell Westbrook. Kept Malik Monk, even though there were a lot of trade rumors in the offseason, which didn't make a lot of sense to me. But ideally, what are the Kings constructed to do well? And I don't mean that with any shade at all, but like, what is the identity that they're trying to build in Sacramento now? Because a few years ago, with lighting the beam and Mike Brown being there and getting to the playoffs and making a run with Fox and Sabonis, it felt like it was something special building in Sacramento. And in 2 years, it feels like a completely different team.
Yeah, the Sacramento Kings are the Isle of misfit toys. I mean, they just have a roster of so much talent, 2 first ballot Hall of Famers, an all NBA caliber center, a Euro basket champion, and it just doesn't work, or it doesn't seem like it's working. And Doug Christie is in his first year as a full-time NBA head coach, and he has his identity of how he plays and how he wants the Kings to play, which is very defensive oriented. Scott Perry comes in as the new general manager and lists out a lot of these traits and tenets of how he wants the Kings to play: defense oriented, physical. And you look at this roster and they check some of the boxes, but a lot of these players only check maybe a few of them. Identity this year is really what this season is all about. It's about the Sacramento Kings establishing this new identity of being a physical team. They want to play fast. They want to get up and down. They want to build on the defensive end first and then have the offense come naturally off of that. They want to be a team that also punches first, right? That has this kind of this attitude of like, we're not going to be pushed around. We're going to bully you. You're not going to bully us type thing. But again, the roster just does not make sense. What their strength, I guess, should be is offense. Zach LaVine, to this point, has scored 30 points in every single game so far this season. The Kings are 1-2. DeMar DeRozan is a phenomenal closer, and he's great when he gets to his spots, but how does he fit into a fluid offense? The Kings want to shoot a lot of threes. They did last night against the Lakers, but they're not necessarily loaded with guys who shoot in the high 30s to low 40s from 3-point range percentage wise. So again, it's a lot of square pegs and trying to fit them into round holes. The Kings are really trying to mold this roster which is the third oldest roster in the league, into something that they've never really been. And that's pretty much where we're at, is how malleable can these players be?
And you mentioned that what Christie's looking to do was kind of have that defense fuel the offense going forward. And from what I've seen, the offense has been a little choppy through the first 3 games, not really even getting to the free throw line too often. And I know that the game against the Lakers is probably a sore spot with the free throw discrepancy that was in their one. But also generally not shooting a ton of threes, but knocking them down at a pretty good clip. Is the current fuel for the Kings offense really based upon just kind of like DeRozan and Levine getting their buckets, or is the flow of the offense like generated for the other guys to also cook, or is it more kind of ISO focused on those 2 stars? And what is Sabonis's role offensively for this team now as well?
Yeah, the offense just feels very your turn, my turn, your turn, my
Mhm.
turn. Like Levine is capable of scoring in the flow of the offense. He's capable also of just like dribbling the basketball and pulling up himself. DeMar DeRozan's game is, let me dribble to my spots, go one-on-one with you, and either get to the foul line or make a jumper. And Sabonis, the Kings want to, in theory, naturally play through him. And we saw more of an emphasis of the Kings trying to play through him and more of an established 2-man game with Sabonis and Zach LaVine. And it just seems like they've already gone away from that, or they're not going through that as much as they did in the first place. It just feels so disjointed, and
Mhm.
you're gonna have guys that are on the perimeter that just need to be able to knock down shots, just to space the floor enough to allow this team to work. It just feels like very pickup Drew League basketball, and I'm
Mhm.
sure, like, I'm cutting Doug Christie in this coaching staff short a little bit, because I know they run plays. I know they have sets. I'm sure there are very specific things that they're working on with how the Sacramento Kings are trying to play. But when you're looking at it from the perspective of someone who's only in practice at the very, very end, that doesn't see those plays,
Yeah.
doesn't see those breakdowns, it just looks like you have a lot of mouths to feed, and you're trying to keep everybody happy with giving them touches and giving them looks. But when one guy is going, everybody else is just kind of standing there ready to catch and shoot for 3 if needed, but not exactly involved. And Doug Christie
Yeah.
always talks about, like, the ball has energy. He wants to see the ball move around and zip around. And to be fair, there have been times as the lineups have gotten more comfortable with each other that the ball has moved well.
Mhm.
So I do think that can be improved, and that is naturally going to improve just with the comfort level of this group. But this team also has a bunch of guys that are kind of set in their ways, for lack of a better term. They know how they play and how they've played for 17 years, some of them. So when the rubber meets the road, they revert back into what they know how to do, and that's not very team basketball oriented.
Yeah, you hear a lot of coaches mention how the ball has energy. It's something Doc Rivers says a lot as well, not wanting the Bucks to be an ISO team, move the ball, driving kick, use penetration to create 3-point looks for other guys. And of course, having Giannis can help with a lot of different things with his gravity on the court. Now, I know the Kings were dealing with quite a few different injuries throughout the preseason. And then as the season kicks off, Sabonis missed the first game, returned for game 2, but no Neat Clifford, no Keegan Murray. How have the Kings been making up for their absences, because those are some really solid like wing options, even though Nick's really young, but what he's shown so far in the flash is like, I would imagine you want him on the court as much as possible. So how have the Kings been kind of making up for these absences?
Yeah, Neek being out is a bummer. He has a hamstring issue. He suffered it in game 1 when he started against the Phoenix Suns last Wednesday. So there is a chance that he'll be back and available for the Bucks game. At least that's the hope. But we're talking about the 24th overall pick. We're talking about a rookie. So his impact is good, but not game changing. Keegan Murray's absence, this Kings team just can't afford. Not because Keegan is a generational player, but because the Sacramento Kings have zero depth really at Keegan Murray's position. He's their only guy that's like that 6'8", 6'9",
Mhm.
pure like forward. They have another 6'9" guy in Isaac Jones, who basically is a center, and then Dario Saric, who's 6'10", who does not really look that playable, and then centers. Like that's this roster has just been this way even since Beam Team 1. They've just lacked size at the forward position, have just continuously refused to address it, put all the responsibility on the shoulders of Keegan Murray. And Keegan gets hurt, and they have no depth to back it up, right? So The Kings already, like, even if Keegan Murray's playing, they're already like praying to God they can do whatever they can just to stop Giannis, because they just don't have anybody that can possibly match up with a player like Giannis. But without Keegan Murray there, I mean, a prayer is literally all they have. And other guys are showing defensive improvement. I think Zach LaVine is playing some of the best defense of his career. Believe it or not, it's not going to matter against Giannis. Like DeMar DeRozan, not going to matter. Like, they can't do it. They can't do anything to stop them. So it should be free passage for Milwaukee to get Giannis downhill, to get to the rim. The Kings will probably have to result with fouls and swiping at the ball to just try and stop him in any way, shape, or form. But no, Keegan Murray is a significant loss for this Kings team, because he is the heart and soul of their defense, and also one of their better, more consistent floor spacers and shooters. So this team just has refused to address the depth at that position. And when Keegan's out, it's a gaping hole that every team is aware of and every team is going to exploit.
Yeah, I can understand it to a certain degree here in Milwaukee too, because the Bucks have gone with the starting, lineup in the backcourt here, where you have Kevin Porter Jr., who's been out with an ankle injury, as well as AJ Green and Gary Trent Jr. So that trio of guys, with AJ Green normally taking on that wing matchup, can be undersized a bit, and that can be a little bit challenging. But the Bucks can throw some size at opposing teams off the bench as well. So we'll see if Kyle Kuzma is healthy by that time. I know that might sound like Kyle Kuzma, like really, but he's looked pretty good so far early in the
Kings.
Yeah,
he always cooks the Kings.
So hopefully he's back by that time too. But Matt, I want to thank you for your time. I think Kings and Bucks should be an interesting battle, especially this early on in the season. So thank you for your time. Interesting is what everybody says when looking at the Sacramento Kings, and I don't take it as a compliment, but glad you can be curious. We'll see how this game goes. Thanks, Camille. For sure. And thank you for making Locked On Bucks your first listen today. For that second listen, go on and check out Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Josh Lloyd keeps you up to date. He got all the tips and the tricks and the news and the stats to help you win your league and make you a smarter NBA fan in the process. So make sure you check that out wherever you get your podcast, Locked On Fantasy Basketball. And again, another special thank you to all the gents for joining Locked On Bucks today. Shout out to Gavin Schall from Locked On Knicks, Chuck Walter from Locked On Warriors, and Matt George from Locked On Kings, previewing the next 3 Bucks opponents. The Wednesday episode for Locked On Bucks will be a post-game episode recapping that Knicks game. It will come to you a little bit later than normal. Some scheduling challenges on Tuesday. We're going to record that episode Wednesday morning, so it will be in your feeds Wednesday morning. Make sure you check that out. We appreciate you for tuning in and making Locked On Bucks your first listen, and we'll be back very, very soon.